Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of K9s Talking Scents. I'm your host, Cameron Ford. And on this episode, what I wanted to do was do something that we've never done before, but is a very popular topic in the detection dog world. And that is for people who want to become detection dog handlers, how do I go about doing this? I don't have law enforcement. I don't have military. And I really want to get in this field. So that question comes to me a lot of times, but through friends of friends, I decided I wanted to bring this guest on who's done exactly that. And that guest is Deni McNulty. Thank you so much for coming on here and being willing to share, share your story with us.
Yeah, thank you.
So just a little bit, just give a brief background of, just tell us who you are, a little bit of your history in the dog world, and then we'll get into kind of where you got to where you're at today.
Okay. So my name is Deni. I've been in the dog world probably about like 7 years now. I actually got into the dog world through our mutual friend, Pete Stevens. I'm not going to get into the details of like getting Oakley, my backyard bred Malinois Shepherd, but basically I needed an outlet for her. So I had zero background with working dogs. I didn't even grow up with dogs as a kid. I had a Yorkie at the time, and my background was literally modeling and acting since I was like 9 years old. And I ended up getting this puppy from Craigslist, and she was just too much. So I was like, what can I do to give her another outlet, you know? So I just started like Googling at home what to do with this dog, and scent detection came up. So I was like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. So Pete's name popped up on Google search. So I called him that day. And I think Oakley was like 6-7 months at the time. And he was like super nice. He was like, come on, come through, do some like classes every Saturday. I'll evaluate your dog. And I was like, okay. So honestly, ever since then, I've been just obsessed with detection. It's been like such a awesome experience. So
and that's a lot. Yeah. And what you're bringing up is a story that's very familiar to me, as kind of like similar to Pete, where people find me through, like, just like you did. They have a dog, they're looking for an activity, and detection crops up as one of the things that's out there. And so when you started it with Pete, was it in the nose work world first, or did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did just the AKC, like birch, anise, and clove. Because Pete always said, like, when you have your own dog, like, I didn't have anything to compare it to, because I didn't really know what drive was. I especially didn't know what hunt drive was. And he was like, oh, you need to listen to Cameron Ford's podcast. So I've literally been listening to your podcast for like 7 years. So it's an honor to be on your podcast. And he's like, she's not your typical Mal. She's not like super drivey. And her hunt drive is not really that great. But like at the time, I had no idea what that was. And I'm like, this dog is, to me, she seems crazy. But like, as you know, energy and drive is two different things. Okay. So it took us a little while for her to like get to the box. And honestly, it was a huge learning curve, because it's easy to have a dog that's genetically bred to do that, because they just automatically do it. There's no issues in the background. But God forbid, like someone, bumps into something, then she's like, whoa, and it was a class. So I would watch other dogs do it in different breeds. And it's hard not to get like discouraged, because you're like, man, I have this dog that's like a Malinois Shepherd that military and like law enforcement, uses. And like in my head, I'm like, she kind of sucks. Like, like I loved her, but I'm like, damn, this kind of sucks. But honestly, Pete always said, like, you'll understand one day when you have another dog that's been bred to do this. But this is a good dog to teach you patience, handling skills, because I didn't know any of that,
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that I had her to get me up into where I am now, because it's kind of like, now you're like, okay, now you have a dog that's more bred for it. And everything, honestly, with imprinting Tanner was just like, it was like too smooth almost, I'm like, okay, when is this dog going to like tweak out? Is he going to have some weird environmental issues? Is he going to not have the drive to hunt? Like, it was always like a fear, because that's the kind of dog that I started with.
Yeah.
But it was
So that sport world basically gave you to the point that gave you a good foundation of what to expect when you got into the professional side of things. Would that
Exactly.
be?
And honestly, like this was never something that I wanted to do professionally, you know? For me, it was just an outlet for my dog and it was a hobby for me. I mean, I would do this on my days off, you know, on the weekends or during the week. I would be paying to take my dog, you know, versus now I'm getting paid to do this. And Pete, it was like, you know, you remind me of myself when I was younger because I would stay after my class and watch other dogs work because I was just so infatuated with it. Like there was like wiener dogs and like Aussies. And I'm like, man, this is so cool. Like I would just like sit there and like write down things. And I'm like, you know, I want to come to your seminars, like and help you out. So I would like help him put out, you know, aids and stuff like that and just watch search and rescue dogs. And he has this locations like an Iraqi village thing. I don't know if you've been there.
Oh yeah, Strat Ops.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would like help them out, you know, and I just watch like all the dogs do it. I'm like, man, this is so cool. Like I wish I could do this one day, you know? And Pete was like, well, I have a friend that's kind of like thinking about, you know, opening up his own private company. He's like, I can't get you the job, but I'll see if I can get you an interview. I was like, okay. So that's kind of how that started. And this was like 3 years later. I think Oakley was like 3 years old at this time. And I started at sport with her when she was like 6-7 months.
Okay. So you're hitting, what I love is you're hitting a theme that happens in the police and the military world all the time, which is people like yourself who put in the work, who stay after extra, the ones who are passionate about it, who put in that extra time to learn certain things, end up obviously getting the attention of people who are a lot of times in the right position to, like in this case, put you up for a spot because they got to know you better because you hung around more. Your drive and determination showed itself through what you're doing, even when it was just sport dog training. And then a guy like Pete, who is connected to the professional world, says, hey, there might be an opportunity here. I can't guarantee anything, but go for it and let it speak for itself. So I'm assuming you did your interview and obviously you got selected. Now, did you go, was Tanner part of, basically, how did you find Tanner and what's your story about how you guys came together and what did you go, that's the dog for me?
So Tanner wasn't even alive yet. He just turned 3. That interview went well. I got paired with my dog, Linda. That was my first real working dog. She was imported from Holland. I mean, she was insane, like crazy drive, not super social. I mean, she bit me a million times. Like, and this is, for me, this was like the first time ever handling a dog like this. I went from Oakley to this sweet, social, not super drivey, energetic, but not, she would never bite me over a ball. Like, I was like, what the hell is this? You know, I'd call Pete. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is, you know, he's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. She's a good dog. Like, blah, blah. I'm like, this is crazy. So, going with a dog like that from going to a dog like Linda was pretty crazy, actually. This dog never lived at home, and I was living with a friend at the time. And when I'm telling you, I brought her home, I was like, I called my friend. I was like, can you come out front? I got to wash her. She smells like shit, like disgusting, like a total kennel dog. She's like, okay. She comes out. We're doing the hose. She's like eating the hose. She's like alligator rolling. Then I took the towel. She's like tugging with the towel. I'm like, what the hell? Because, you know, back in the day, they used to imprint with towels. And that's how they, I guess, imprinted her. So it was just a hot mess. I brought her inside the house. She was like eating the drywall. She took the lamp off the table. And I'm like, I told P, I was like, I don't think I could do this. I don't want to do this. My like, I'm stressed, you know? And then also she wasn't really social with dogs. So like, this is the first time ever. I went from a Yorkie to a Malinois Shepherd that loved each other. My Yorkie passed. Then I had Linda and Oakley, and it was just like constant like crate rotation because they would kill each other. So that was honestly a huge, like, I'm not going to lie. I was like, I don't want to do this. This is like, my life was okay before this. I don't think I want to, you know, teach this dog house manners. Like, what the hell?
And you're bringing up something that goes through, people like yourself go through, which is you got into it in the civilian side of things with a
Yeah.
dog that was, like you said, not a professionally selected dog. So, but it did good enough. It taught you some things.
Yeah.
And then when you get your very first professional dog that just kind of gets dumped in your lap, and in your case, it was
Yes.
selected for you, it is a whole new world. And many who haven't experienced a working dog environment do exactly like what you did, which is that holy shit moment. Like, what did I get myself into? This dog has no manners. My current dog can live in the house and doesn't destroy
Yes.
anything, sleep on the floor. This one I have to manage. I have to, crate and rotate or give it its own separate times to do things. And its energy levels are through the roof. And the minute you let them out of the crate or out of the kennel or to go do something, they're just like instantly on fire because they're like, we're going to go do something. Does that sound about what you went through?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So going through like their version of academy was we had like probably, I don't know, 12 to 15 handlers. And most of them didn't really know, they had zero background in anything. I was grateful enough that I had Pete, and Pete was like one of the instructors.
Mm-hmm.
So he already knew, I already knew what I was getting myself into kind of, but also this was cargo. So I had no idea what cargo even was. I mean, I came from, sport world. We weren't doing pallets and like, thousands of pallets at that. So they imprinted Linda, and I don't know, she was, I mean, looking at it back now, I'm thinking, oh, she's good, but I would obviously change some things now because I have more experience, but, because like, I don't like how, I mean, it's like a preference, but I didn't like how sloppy her TFR was.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really have anything to, it was better than Oakley's, let's put it that way. Cause Oakley would just like sniff and freeze. And I also didn't really like that.
Yeah.
And then just her just being insane. Like she was like 100 miles per hour, like me trying to handle this dog. I'm like, it was like a little Tasmanian devil. And they were like, do better, do this. I'm like, how? Like this dog's crazy. I can't control it. He's like, spin her around. And I'm like spinning like 18 times plus. This dog didn't have an out. So that's not something I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
So then I did the two balling, and then me and Pete did like a million methods, and it was like just not working. She was a hard dog, and really all this dog really needed was like a handler. She just needed a handler. Like she just needed that bond, And after that, she was perfect. She was just out like it was nothing. Like she never had an issue before.
Yeah,
it was nice.
And you're bringing up that's exactly because these dogs go in that vendor cycle. They leave whoever their first handler was, whether it be a vendor or a person in Europe that says, yeah, I've trained the dog to the way I wanted, or it can't go any further with this, so let me sell it to let's say a Dutch vendor, like you said. And then the Dutch vendor then sells it to an American vendor. And then the American vendor gets it. So this dog, my comment to kind of get people to relate to it is, it's like getting a foster child. This kid has had no family. This kid has had, inconsistent rules, and it knows that it's supposed to act up in certain ways that's allowed to do. But then all of a sudden the rules change and they're like, what are you talking about, man? I've been living this way for a while. I don't know who I belong to. So I'm just gonna live my life the way I want to and work off of instinct. So then somebody like you gets the dog and you're like, what the hell is going on here? And it takes that time to the point that you made that you have to establish a bond. You have to have a relationship. And then that starts taking away all the things that you're managing at first, because now the dog has got some consistency in its life, because up to that point, there's been no consistency. So the poor dog is just doing what it can, but it doesn't have without the consistency, it just does what it does based on instinct and drive and motivation and things like that. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And it's cool to kind of hear that, you realize where that's at. So talk us through. So basically, once you got through that step, how did you and Tanner find each other? What was the story to that?
So through Instagram, I've always followed his breeder. It's Mountain Shadow Lab. So I'm not sure if it's Chris.
I've heard of it before. Yeah.
Yeah. And we would just keep in touch because I was like, I love your dogs. They're so beautiful. I'm like, man, I would love one. And I was thinking in my head, like maybe just as a pet one day, like that's kind of where my thought was. Cause I already had Oakley. I had a boyfriend at the time that had a Malinois that he also trained, and he was a lot. And that we also had the Yorkie. So I was like, not right now. Like when the time's right, I'll get him, I'll get him. But then, so after that whole thing with the company ended and I returned Linda, I wanted to move back to the East Coast and be closer to family. So I ended up doing like little contracts here and there with company dogs that weren't my dogs. But I kind of like was like, you know what, I should get a floppy ear dog. I feel like this would be like a good thing for me. Like, I just feel like there's been a lot of, you know, problems with pointy ear dogs and like, I don't know. I don't want a lab. Like I was like, I don't really want like a floppy ear dog because it's cooler to have a Malinois, you know, but I just felt like deep down, I knew that I would be busier if I had a lab. So Chris actually reached out to me, one of his friends, Nate, his thing is foul play, but anyway, Chris's female that he now has had a litter, and he texted me, he was like, hey, we have a litter on the ground, and I thought of you because this, like, they're going to be working, like, they're working dogs. Like, if you're looking for, you know, a bomb dog, whatever, what do you want to do? Narcotics. I didn't care really at the time what I wanted to do, you know, but I was like, okay. So I told him, pick one for me, pick me the most like douchiest one with the most drive. I don't care what he looks like. So long story short, they picked Tanner for me, and it's exactly what I asked for. Douche with drive.
Yep. Ford K9 is excited to announce we have 2 great events upcoming here at our facility in Santa Rosa, California. The first is in July 15th through the 18th, and that is our Advanced Detection Dog Seminar. This seminar is open to all detection dog disciplines, and it's for teams that are fairly advanced in their skill set. On top of this, if you have a fully trained explosive detection dog or firearms dog and you're looking for a career opportunity with Stratus K9, attending this event could get you selected to work for Stratus K9. Our detection dog handler course, which is August 4th through the 15th, also is open to all detection dog disciplines. If you have a partially trained or even fully trained explosive dog or firearms dog, you are also encouraged to attend this event if you're looking for employment with Stratus K9. We will also offer some select scholarships to individuals who qualify to attend these classes for employment with Stratus K9. Make sure you either go to fordk9.com or stratusk9.com and fill out an application. So that way we have your information, we'll review it. If you have any questions, please contact us. And we look forward to seeing you all sign up in one of these 2 events and maybe even get a job with Stratus K9. No, so 2 things. So I'm gonna go back just 1 second. So you made a comment which I thought was really relevant, which is after you had your first job, you then picked up some additional work.
Yeah.
Did you find it easier to get the jobs, at least once you had that first job, then after that, applying for jobs became a lot easier?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Because it was, you know, I had a resume now because I had the scent detection with Pete, also his helper, you know, so that helped me. And then I just did a couple interviews on the East Coast. I found out a couple company names, which I will not be naming, but they like asked me to come and do an interview. He let me run one of his dogs, and he's like, I like the way you handle. Yeah, like, you know, come on. So then he would just use me for like jail jobs. So it would just be like nighttime, and he would just let me use his Dutch Shepherd, and I would just do like, you know, the
security dog work.
Secure dogs at a jail, which I didn't really like, but it was a job and it gave me experience.
And that's a big thing is, you know, once the door opens, it becomes on us. Now, as a person, he's gone through these different pieces of experience, how important is it to see companies for you invest in their people, in the education of the handler more? Or you've probably seen it, and tell me if I'm wrong, a lot of stuff is heavily focused towards the dog training and not as much is given towards handler education. What experiences have you had as you kind of gone through these different contracts? What are things that you find that are very important? Like if you were to tell somebody as you're going into this field, pay attention to this, and this.
I just feel, see, when I started, I'd say it was a little harder to get into it. Now I feel like there's more companies out there. And I don't know, I feel like in the private world, and I've always felt this way, that I feel like people don't really take us as more like seriously as law enforcement and military, which kind of sucks for people like me because I travel, as you know, and in each city I make a point to connect with a canine team to get Tanner on odors that he has never seen, and they're live odors. Obviously, I can't be traveling with live odors unless it's just black powder.
Yep.
But it's good to have him on kits, different kits, live odors, and just double blinds. Like I can't always be the one doing that for him. But I feel like there should be a higher standard when it comes to private contract world, because it shouldn't just be easy. Like I'm not just going to be a doctor tomorrow, because I feel like it. And I don't think it should be that easy for someone to do what I did. Like, oh, let's get a dog. And now I'm going to just start this full-time job as this, bomb dog handler. I try to educate myself. I'm always humble. If there's something that I'm not doing that's right, I'll always ask, people I look up to. But I do think that there should be like a standard certification for everybody, not just for private. It should be like we should all be on the same level.
Yep.
Everyone should do the same thing. That way we're not like, oh, she didn't do this. Because, as you know, some private companies have their own certifications.
Yep.
We have Upwada, and that's why I did that, because I didn't ever want people to be like, oh, you got your certification through your company and they probably just helped you out. Like you didn't really work for it. And it's like a constant battle for me, even when I'm training with K9 units out. And, I'm grateful for them letting me come and like train with them. That's really nice. This private, detection girl that's coming in with their lab. They're like, okay, here we go. But then at the end of it, they're like, wow, you guys are a great team. I really like the way you work. Your dog's really confident. He's great. Like, but before that, it's almost like I kind of feel that judgment a little bit. Like, and one of the guys was like, I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't really expecting anything crazy from you. Like, I just thought that because he's like, I've worked with a couple of private people and their dogs weren't really that good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but it sucks to hear too, that I feel like I have to constantly prove myself to everybody every time. It's like, come on,
You're only as good as your last search.
Yep. But if I was law enforcement or military, like, I don't think that.
You're right. You guys, I mean, in the civilian side, in the civilian sector, it gets a lot more scrutiny, right? But to the point that you made, because there is no rules, there is no unified anything, and some places do go or send their teams through some type of either state or national certification standards, but others, many, may not, and they just use in-house certification procedures, or it's the friend of the friend. Maybe it's an organization, but it's a small-time organization. Has like the same body of people that have always been there from the beginning to what it is now, and they're the certifying authorities too. Versus a larger organization that has elections and people get moved in and out, and there's but those are usually your heavy law enforcement centric ones. But goes back to your thing of civilians don't get the same treatment. They're always looked at differently. So I totally understand it, how tough it is, because I feel for you guys, because in many cases, there are a lot of civilian dog teams that I've watched and worked with that also outperform some of the military or law enforcement ones. And every program has their, whether it be civilian or I call it commercial. I'll just call it commercial versus, the law enforcement military side. Both sides have people that are hard chargers, great workers, do amazing jobs. And we got ones that are also lazier ones. And unfortunately, for the time being, the commercial sector gets a little bit more of that label just because it's the newer part. It also has, a lot of people who didn't go through traditional industry standard training, right? But it's not because you guys didn't want to. It just wasn't out there for you.
Absolutely.
Which is why it's important for people, and I'm sure you probably agree with this, if you can get yourself into a professional school to go through becoming a handler or just learning detection skills in general, you should jump on that. And because at some point it could pay off for you, whether it's immediately right afterwards, you go get a job with, company X, or you did the work and then an opportunity comes along and you're like, yeah, I've been through a class before. I've gone through some basic training. I have some level, but I'm ready to go, take this opportunity to work with, whatever company offers that chance, because at least they have a school to go through. Is that
right?
Kind of match what you feel too, is when it comes to classes and things like that?
Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of up to you. Like in the private world, you're the one that has to upkeep all your stuff. If you want to learn more, you have to go out there and do it yourself. It's not going to be, it's just not accessible for us.
And that's the toughest part. The training aids And the support to educate and give you opportunities to work your dog is tough.
Yeah.
So that's what I want people who are hearing this to realize. Yes, we know the pain, but you navigated through it by networking, getting yourself out there, putting yourself in positions to do that. And I want people to kind of, use this as motivation potentially to hear and take an opportunity, even if it costs you some money, take the opportunity because it will pay off if you keep digging and pushing through.
And put yourself in your like dog in situations that aren't comfortable. Like people think that I'm just coming out here and, doing a sweep, but I write down every single aid that he does, how many pounds of it, where it was. And I feel like people get, especially in the private world, people get lazy.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure it's like that in
law enforcement and military for sure. It's just the law enforcement military sector are held to those standards, so they have to at some point. And what you're saying is the civilian world doesn't have that a lot of times. There's no one to enforce them to do that. Yeah. It's. So I'll bring you back a little bit. We got into how you got there. Going into Tanner a little bit. So you get him. He's a puppy. He's that total, like you said, little douche, but motivated dog, right?
Yeah.
But tell us, so you get through year one, when did you guys begin training, and talk to us about the process of how you brought him into the world of.
Yeah. So he was 12 weeks, which I think is a pretty good age to figure out kind of like where his drive is. Mm-hmm. He was crazy. He wasn't like insane, like most like little labs that you see, but his hunt drive was insane. Like I would throw a kibble on the ground and you can just hear this like little nose. And I'm like, this is so new. Like even Linda wasn't like that. She was more prey driven anyway. She didn't have a hunt drive like a lab. Yeah. Like, come on, labs are just machines when it comes to that. If they're bred well, Yep. So I started with a PVC pipe. I just made one. And I started with Semtex just for fun. So I literally started imprinting him at 12 weeks. Because in my mind, I'm like, this is just going to be a process that I'm going to take my time. I want to take my time. The most important thing for me was to take him to jobs because I was already working for a company. So I would take him with me to kind of get him out there, get him used to like the sounds. And so environmental was obviously my number one thing, But I would take the PVC pipe with me while there's concerts going on, just so he can kind of like get used to the noise. And I would use hot dogs or food reward was like my main thing with him because he was, a fat puppy at the time. He loved the ball, but I was like, he was like too chaotic with the ball, So I'm like, with the food, he was a little bit more still fat, wanted to eat, but not like crazy,
Yeah.
So I started with him, I think. I'm not even joking, from 12 weeks to he was like maybe 11 months old, ready to certify, but I wanted to wait just because I didn't want people to be like, oh, this 11-month-old dog is going to be certified. So I kind of just took my time, and I ended up certifying with him through a guy named Terry Jones with Upwada. We drove down to North Carolina and we did our first certification, and he passed, and it was amazing because he was my first working dog that I ever, raised as a puppy.
The fingerprints are all yours. It isn't anything else in there. You did all the work, and you hit some really important, great things that people miss when it comes to, because because the audience is so wide when it comes to experience, that people listen to the podcast or whatever, and or my YouTube channel and so forth. I shy away from having people typically start puppies, even though I fully agree you can. And I'm actually got an upcoming episode with Pat Nolan that we're going to talk about all of this. But what you did, which was so important, is it's the environmental aspects are what wash out most detection dogs. And what I loved was because you incorporated him into your normal work routine, you were exposing him to the environments as a puppy of what he's going to go work in, and you made it fun and enjoyable, which is so important. And you took your time with it. And then the other thing that I love, which is huge, I have to preach it all the time now. I mean, you probably saw on social media, we're doing this study with Dr. DeGrief here on explosive dogs and going through testing procedures and so forth. And the biggest issue that we see is people train with the same kit all the time, or there's so much history to their kit. They don't get exposed to a lot of other ones. So now during testing, we're having lots of misses because the dogs are like, I don't know that one. And you're whether it was by design or just because the way that your schedule is, you have to go train with other people all the time. And there's a huge benefit from that because your dog's getting to generalize really well to all different types of C4, all different types of powders, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's huge to be able to do that because I see that it doesn't get done enough. It's that generalization that dogs must have. You have to go use a bunch of different stuff. Don't keep using your same kit all the time, or don't make that the vast majority of what you use. So, that's, like I said, by design or through your experience, you did a lot of things the right way, which is so critical for success. So with that, what would you say is some of the toughest or the hardest challenges you've had when you were developing Tanner to become what he is today?
So he's definitely like a bull in a china shop as he got older. When he was a puppy, he was kind of easy to imprint, honestly, because he was calmer. And it was kind of like a routine because I did it twice a day. Every meal was scent work. We didn't do any obedience, nothing. Like he had no obedience until he was like 15 months old. Was that the best thing? Probably not. But his obedience to odor is insane, because every meal came from Semtex, basically. Like that was his thing. But the biggest challenge for me was transferring the ball in without him being chaotic. So he was like such a calm searcher when it came to the food. Mm-hmm. Now when I brought the ball in at I think it was around 7-8 months, I started transitioning the ball. Mm-hmm. And it was just the whining, the leaking, it was just a whole different animal now. And I'm ugh, I don't know if I want to deal with this, Mm-hmm. So that was a challenge. And it definitely took, I'd say probably a couple months for him to, now because he's considered more seasoned because we work 6 days a week, mm-hmm. he's awesome. He's actually so nice to live with. I'm shocked that he's laying down right now, not kenneled. He was never like that before we worked 6 days a week. He was just chaotic, always in your face. I'm you're going in the kennel, dude. I'm not dealing with this. But I love his drive for the ball. And I was I need for him to learn this transition, So that was probably the most challenging thing for me. And also working rooms and just him not skipping anything. Because, when you first come into a room, it was so hard for him to search the corners. And I always Pete's phrase lives rent free in my head. He's check the corners, don't, mm-hmm. Corners kill. I'm go here. And he's this chaotic animal on a leash. And I'm spinning around and he won't check the corners. So that was just challenging. But now that's something that he does automatically because I've learned to put odor there enough times for him to know that, okay, there is odor here. There could be odor here, Mm-hmm. So now he's obviously more seasoned, but that was a challenge for me, Yeah.
Well, that brings in a common one that a lot of bomb dog handlers deal with. And I don't know if you have, but how do you get him to make sure he starts checking the minute you say search and checks that first 4 to 8 feet with some of the things that you've done to make sure that he doesn't just take off because a high drive dog like you're bringing up.
Yeah.
So many of them, when they say search, just shoot out of the cannon and off they go. Right. And that threshold doesn't get checked as good as, or you have to work your way back to the threshold. But
exactly.
In the bomb dog world, that could be killer for you if you don't have a good dog who checks immediately when you say check. What have you gone through to deal with that for yourself?
Just reps, reps of him not blowing it. And I'm no, you need to check this. And I had him on a leash, because mm-hmm. a lot of the times when I do sweeps with him, he's off leash. I don't really have to have him on a leash. How am I going to search a whole theater with him on a leash? That's impossible, And is he searching every seat? No, he's doing as much as he can. Yeah. Right. But, that's something that I had to reinforce pretty frequently when we first started training. Even now, I'm not saying he's a perfect dog and he doesn't always come in and search the first corner, that whatever, but that's something that if he doesn't do it, I'll call him back and make him do it. He's not going to go, if he runs out like a cannon, he's coming right back and doing that. And then he can go do that.
And then hide placement, having the hide, I share with people now.
Yeah.
put a hide roughly about 30% of the time at the start. So that way the dog expects there could be here. And then because of that expectation, they'll start off checking even better.
Yes.
And then, like you said, also making sure that if the dog does blow it, I have enough control, whether it be by leash or by voice. Hey, we need to check this before we move on. Yeah. So that way it's safe. Yeah, that's always a big challenge for a lot of bomb dog handlers. So as best you can, describe kind of what your guys' daily jobs are right now.
So as you know, we can talk about that now. I'm on a Broadway tour, Hamilton. And there's like 8 shows a week. So basically we do Tuesday through Sunday, and Tuesday through Friday we have just one show. So we basically come in 3 hours before the show starts. We'll do like an outside perimeter search, just, check the trash cans around the whole entire place. Then we go inside and just do the hallways, the dressing rooms, the theater, the kitchens, like literally basement, everything you can think of. Every theater is different. Some theaters have 8 floors and you have to go all the way up to the floors, and some theaters have only 3 floors, so it all depends. But that's basically our search before the cast gets there. And then we kind of like hang around till the show starts. Then I'm kind of in the lobby as a deterrent. And if there's like an unintended bag or something like that, obviously I'll search that. But I'm not like searching every person. There's 3,000 people that come in to the show. Then they have, while they're on, the show's on, we're kind of just hanging in. We're just hanging out, either in the car or the lobby. And I'll give them a break. Usually have like a kennel room or something. And then intermission comes, and same thing, kind of like a deterrent. Then after the show ends, I have to be out at the stage door with the cast members.
Okay.
Yeah.
That way people can see the dog has been keeping them safe, right?
Yes.
So talk us through, if you have one, is there been like one of your, obviously operational searches, has there been one that stands out to you? Like, I was so proud of Tanner for doing what he did, or this particular thing was great. Tell us something about one of those that you've had.
So I'm not very familiar with a lot of theater stuff, because that was never my thing. But I don't know if you are, but they have costumes, a department. Yeah. And so they use a lot of glues, and they use a lot of glue. I mean, it's like gallons. It's like that gallons, of glue. And one of the guys left it open overnight. And as soon as I got in, I can tell he wasn't alerting, but he was searching very thoroughly. And I'm like, he was air scenting and just kind of something's not right here. And so I was like, this is kind of weird. Why is he acting this way? So I later then saw that there was a giant glue that was open, but it was kind of to the side, so I couldn't see it at the time. But so then I was like, oh, it's the nitrate. So I think I called Terry, the guy that certified us. And I'm like, what is because I don't know everything either. I'm not a scientist. I'm like, what's in this glue? Why is he acting like this? And it's like, well, some glues have nitrates in it, so he's probably picking up on the nitrates of the glue. And he wasn't sitting or anything like that, but he was definitely thoroughly searching, and you can tell when they're an odor, So I was proud of him for that, because you can tell when he's an odor versus when he's not an odor. And it's kind of a nice reminder that, even if you feel oh man, this dog's tired, this is 6 days a week, no, he's working, even though it doesn't seem like he's working. Some people are oh, is he really searching that much? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and you're bringing up another huge point that I try to share all the time, is it's your ability to read your dog. And you hit it earlier when you're talking about trained final responses and what you preferred and what you liked.
Yeah.
But I think, as you know now, the real world never lets you really get that nice, perfect indication that we have in the training rooms and all these other places we do. So what would you say are your predictable, repeatable, reliable things to you that tell you that, hey, this needs to have a more thorough check, or I'm going to say this needs an investigation regardless, because I'm seeing in my dog this despite not getting a trained final response? So how important is it to read your dog? And for you, what do you see as the important, what do you see in your dog that you go, yeah, there's something, this is worthy of further inspection?
I think it depends on the dog and the handler, like how, you know, you read your dog and do you trust your dog? Like everyone's like, oh, trust your dog. But then when it actually happens, you're like, are you fucking with me, dude? Yeah. It's like, you're almost like, it's almost like you're kind of embarrassed to say something, because if there's nothing there, then you're like, oh, this is silly. But I think to take away from that, I think it's always good to tell somebody something that the way your dog's behaving versus not. Because then, I mean, he's a bum dog. We have a lot of lives responsible. You know, I'm responsible for a lot of lives. So I'm like, I'm just going to trust my dog. He's acting weird. I can see that he's an odor. No, he's not. He doesn't have a TFR. But like you said, in the real world, they're not always going to have a nice sit, pretty stare. Like that's just not how it is in the real world, because it might smell different to them. It could be fireworks, but there's still that, you know, ingredient in there that he recognizes, but that doesn't mean he's going to have a nice, pretty sit. Of course, he's going to have a nice sit in training, because that's what we taught them. And it's like a lot of odor, and he's kind of like, you know, understands where he's at.
Are you looking for an opportunity to become a professional detection dog handler? Do you already have a fully trained explosive or firearms detection dog? We want to hear from you. Come join us at Stratus K9 and go visit stratusk9.com. That is STRATOSK9.com. Fill out a job application with us. We will review that application and be in touch with you. We look forward to having you join Stratus K9 and be a part of our team. So how do you address with that in training? Have you done things in training to prepare you? Like in training, are you going through the procedures of like, well, I'm not going to let him go to TFR. I want to see how he does on this through inaccessible, kind of like you said earlier. What are you doing in training to prepare you for what you see, what we just talked about right there, where you may not see the perfect indication? What are you doing in training to kind of help you get ready for that?
To be honest, I think it comes with experience, because in training, there's not really, how many scenarios can you really do that you think is going to happen in the world? I don't have like a team of, you know, people that could be like, oh, let's set up this crazy scenario, or, you know, things like that. I think that's another disadvantage that we have in the private world, because we don't have access to different type of things. And it's nice to have someone that's doing the hiding for you. Like, of course I had that obviously in training, but it was kind of like the same thing. It is harder
for you. Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's harder in the commercial. Like, it's like, for example, we have, like I said, the handlers that are going through a class right now with us. And that's what we've been doing to the past couple of days, Natalie and Jesse, and then through some of the things I'm giving them to go set up. It's to see handler decision-making skills. If they see something, some stuff's out there on purpose that they can visually see it, and do they call it before the dog gets there? Like, they have good situational awareness, pay attention to the environment. I don't always have to trust that the dog will find it. I could find it too. Right. And then other things are like today they had a pressure cooker device with only a fingerprint of smokeless powder on the outside of the container. Dang. So how many dogs were, and we had a number of dogs that acknowledge it but it's a low threshold. And we had no handlers willing to call it, because just like you said, how often in real world we see our dogs smell stuff and pause for a second or two, then they move on. Yeah. And sometimes in the explosive world, that's all you're going to get, because the odor available is so low. So what they get to see today was we put that through them in training so that they could see what it looked like, but it's still not going to give them the perfect crystal ball to say, oh, if I see this every single time, this is what I should do. What I wanted them to do is say, what about this one was different? Or to your point too, how do I get them confident to say, you know, this should still be additional check. I mean, my dog didn't respond completely, but we need to look into this more. And it could be nothing. It could this is where the handlers get upset about. It turns out it was a bag of fruit or something. And they're like, you little bastard, you're paying attention to food. But at the same time, I'd rather them have the ability to be confident to say something's there, because what we do a lot of times now is I go do, like for what your job is, we call it a red team assessment, which is unknown to you. We have somebody come through purposely and have something that goes by you and your dog. And we're looking to see, what does a team do? Does a dog bang it? If they do, great. But most times we do these assessments, the dogs acknowledge there's something here, but the handlers, because it's proactive work, you're not what you're. We, again, as handlers, we want that perfect response so that we can feel good about saying, check that bag. But the reality is you may only get a head flick. You may get a longer duration of a sniff. and then see the dog go back to it again. And then this is where I want handlers to start going, you know what? That needs to be checked. Have somebody else make the decision to go check it, but at least you flagged it. Because what's happening on these assessments, they're not flagging anything. And when we talk to them afterwards, like you can see in the video, you see your dog do this, and they're like, yeah, I totally saw it, but I also see it all the time when I'm searching other stuff. And it wasn't big enough for me to feel confident calling it. And that's where, in that commercial world, you guys have to be able to walk this line of, I have to make a notification sometimes. And a lot of times those notifications are going to turn into be nothing. Right. But what we're seeing on the assessments is it's better to make the acknowledgement and it turn out to be nothing, because some of those times it might be an assessment, or actually might be a bad person with bad intentions trying to get something through. And at least you were able to read it and call it and make a decision, versus living in the training land where the indications look perfect. They're strong. It's easy to read my dog, but that real world is a bastard, and it never lines up with what your dreams are in training. That's what you're going to see in reality. So I was glad to hear you say that experience about the glue and going through these different things, because dogs are unique. They're looking for anomalies in the space, and they're also looking to generalize sometimes. They're looking to go, oh, that's close enough, or I've worked my ass off for a while. I want to play. I'm kind of over this. I want to go do this. So, and then there's the ones who read their handlers a lot, where there's been a lot of handler and dog communication. So when the handler does something weird, the dog's like, oh, were you getting ready to pay me? I saw you reach in your pocket. And you're just getting your phone out of your pocket or whatever. So they're such observant creatures, and it's really cool. What you're getting to experience is how much the real world, like you said, gives you that experience to go, oh, I need to be paying attention to these things. My dog needs to be doing this. And the training world is nice. And sometimes some of us, I think, live in the fairyland of training world. Like,
for sure.
This will look a lot like it's in reality, and it's not so much the case. So I'm glad you kind of covered some of those things. I'm trying to think of what advice in that topic, like what advice would you give a new handler about communicating with their dogs in an operational setting? Because again, kind of like training, we come into a lot of, it's easier, but how do you work with communication, both in working your dog and then reading the dog when it's doing stuff in the environments? Like, even if it's stressors, like obviously in your world, somebody may be coming in with an assistance dog, or somebody may be coming in a wheelchair, or something totally different than what the dog's used to. How important is communication, and what have you learned in that time frame?
I think, like I said, it has to be per dog and per handler, and how, how they are. With Tanner, I've put him in a lot of situations before being operationally with him, like I said, with environments. So I would take him to places where there was other dogs. Even when we did training, sometimes we had another dog searching while he was searching, because I don't want him to not search if there's going to be another dog, because Linda couldn't do that. She was so dog reactive. When we were in a warehouse searching and another company was there, she would not search. All she was doing is keying up on this dog. So I learned a couple things from that situation and put that in my current situation. This is the kind of dog that I want, that I didn't like about my other dog. So I would do trainings with other dogs, people walking around. We literally had people in wheelchairs while he's searching and stuff like that. Like, those are the things that kind of like spoke, because, as you know, in cargo, it's super loud. Sometimes she would be like, whoa, what the heck? And just stop searching. So I think at the end of the day, you need to trust your dog, obviously, but also you're a team. So just, there could be such a small little indication of him or her to think that there's something there. I think you need to, even just because we're private doesn't mean that there's not going to be something there, and trust your dog.
And I think one of the things that you do and you share on your social media all the time is you go out and your dog lives in your life with you, just like you're doing right now. The dog is lying next to you. And it's not just a dog that you throw into a kennel when you're not working it and pull it out of the kennel when you go work it, because
it's literally on the floor right now.
Yeah. And that misses out. What you're sharing is, if the dog's integrated with your life, there's so much more about the dog.
Yeah.
And if it's sheltered from that, it doesn't integrate into your normal life for whatever the reason is, you might be setting up yourself for problems because you don't know those intimate little things about the dog. And the joke I make all the time in my lectures now is like I tell every dog handler, I'm like, every single one of you in this class right now can tell me when your dog's about ready to shit. You know every little detail about it. You know what's going to happen. I say, but when I ask, is your dog on odor or not on odor, you struggle. Yeah. Because you know intimately your dog's bowel movement schedule, but you don't know things about your dog when it comes to odor and then to the point of it requires that we need to know this because people's lives are in jeopardy if I don't do this. Right, or don't know this. So I love, that's one of the biggest things that, again, what we were talking to you before when we got on was what you share in your social media is so much more than just sharing what you share on social media. It's showing the relationship between you and your dog, which is what you're trying to do. But the byproduct of that relationship really gives you amazing insight into your ability to work and deploy your dog, which to me, in some cases, gives you an advantage as a commercial dog handler, as opposed to a law enforcement dog handler who may kennel their dog all the time. That's right, And you also kind of take it to the next level because you're working like a cop schedule. You're working 6 days a week, and because you have so many opportunities to be working, you're getting lots of working experience. Where somebody who only may work their dog on weekends or may only get to do 1 or 2 times a
Seasonal.
week. Yeah. So
yeah, that's true. I'm very grateful for the opportunity because it's just so nice to see him transition to like an adult dog now because he started at such a young age and how unbothered he is. I mean, the amount of times I could tell you little children running up to him and grabbing his face, and he's not super social. He's not like a social lab. He's not aggressive, but he's not like a dog that's seeking to be pet. So, it's like a little uncomfortable sometimes when people aren't paying attention to their kids. And they're like, the other day, some girl's like, what's your dog's name? She poked him in the eye and he's just like standing there. And I'm like, thank God. Like he's stable, but just things like that. It's just nice to be in certain situations and seeing your dog handle them. And you're like, wow, this is cool. Like he's actually... Because when we first started, he would just be like so antsy in the lobby. Like he'd just be like, leaking and just wanted to go. Now he's just chilling. I'm like, this is awesome, Yeah,
he knows the routine. He knows what the game, knows what it's about now.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking about education before, about the human. What and where would you say has been the best help for you to keep your continuing education going? Because as you know, this never ends. This is the field is constantly evolving, constantly changing. What advice would you give people in your shoes to go out and find ways to go learn? What worked for you? What was important? And kind of just give it from your perspective. How did you go learn, and what things do you do to keep up with learning?
Well, I think social media is a great platform to learn, especially there's people out there like yourself that put out, training advice and how to do things. And honestly, just watching your stuff, I'm like, oh, I should do more of this. I should, combine more odors together. Cause you don't really, cause again, like as a commercial handler, you don't really have people telling you what you need to do. So I think my advice to people that want to do this, do your research. Maybe there's maybe like how I did. I looked up a trainer in my area. Is that trainer someone that you could maybe possibly be? Is that someone that could be your mentor one day? Or can you sit through a class and maybe learn some things from them? But I also feel like there's a lot of courses you can take. Mike Ellis, he does stuff. You do stuff. There's a ton of resources out there that people can pay for and learn online, I think.
And what have you learned? What would you say is the difference between in person and online? What are things that you've gone through that's different between online and in person?
Oh, I think in person is always going to be something that's a little bit more valuable to me because I'm just such a visual learner. I need to do it. I need to see it and then do it, but not everyone learns that way. Maybe someone can learn another way, but I think that, honestly, finding a good mentor in the scent world, reach out to different people and their methods because not everyone trains the same.
No. And there's so many things you can take away from something else. Like you said, someone may prescribe to a method, but and you may not prescribe that method, but there's still something there that's valuable that you go, you know what, that actually may work over here too.
Yeah. And like with me, like of course I had mentors and people that I looked up to as I was training Tanner, and I would just take things that I liked and apply that to what I want to do in training. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to do exactly what that person does, but if that works for you and your dog, why not? There's so many resources out there that you can reach out to, and there's YouTube videos that you can watch now too, you know?
Yeah. Thanks to COVID, things became a lot easier to do online and to things, but kind of like you said too, there's such a value of in person. And, you know, I've watched the industry grow, obviously, because what I do, there's a lot of people that want to go learn everything online. But at a huge point, if you want to get into this commercially, you want to get into it as a civilian, you've got to do what you did. Be there in person, put in the work, run the dogs, get your hands dirty, you know, experience all the ups and downs, because there's way more downs than there are ups, especially in the early stages. That if you can persevere and get through those, it has a payoff, because at the end of the day, you're like you're doing right now, you get to go do what you love. You're traveling the United States, getting to do what you love to do, and you're getting to meet other amazing handlers, other cool dogs, sharing all those experiences, and working with different security things too. I would imagine too, different security teams, different areas. Yeah. Give me your experience of what it's like to have the dog integrated to, let's say, the traditional security. What have people said to you about the dog coming in, and what have you seen as a dog handler that the dogs bring in that the traditional security side doesn't really have?
What do you mean? Like,
so like there's obviously the typical metal detectors and the handbag checks and things like that. Right. But the integration of the dog adds another layer to this, of course. What has been the reception by the traditional security side by having dogs there? And what have you seen just yourself going, oh, it's very good that we have a dog here besides the typical person waving a wand over a person walking?
So it depends, actually. Some theaters are pretty good. Like I have to say, here in Vegas, I've never seen security like I've seen here. I mean, all their security is armed. There's metal detectors. I mean, it's insane. And I've been on the road for a year. And when I'm telling you, this is the first time that I see security, even like just going up and down the hallways through the basement. Like, I mean, it's crazy. I'm like, literally last night I made a joke. I was like, I don't even know why I'm here. And they're like, oh, well, you're here because we don't have a dog, you know? And of course, obviously I'm joking because we're doing something else. But there's other... Like I have to say, LA was kind of slacking. Like they didn't really, they had a metal detector, but no one was allowed to be armed. Like, you know, I can't carry when I'm there, obviously. But, and then like San Francisco, I don't even think they had a metal detector. It was kind of weird. Like they had like, you know, younger kids that are doing these. They have no classes, no education when it comes to this. They're just like doing the wand thing because it's a paycheck.
Yep.
So then I'm like, well, thank God we're here, because when I see that, then I'm usually kind of up front before they come in. And I'm just like, if something comes up, like, I'll search that bag. I'll do this. You know what I mean? Kind of just be a little bit more visual to like the situation, because not every theater has security like this one.
That's a huge point. So as a handler, you're bringing up what I call get yourself gainfully employed. If they don't have something for you. So what would you tell handlers in situations like you've been in? How do you stay gainfully employed, and how do you stay relevant in the security environment? Because obviously you're bringing it up. You identify things. So talk me through what you're identifying to go, you know what, I'm going to handle that because I think this is a better way to do it than what's currently going on. What do you do, and what red flags it for you? Like, I'm going to go do this.
Yeah, I think it depends on the place where you're at. I think it depends on the person and how far you want to go with this, right? Like my job isn't really to be out there making sure that security guards are doing their jobs. I'm contracted through another company. Basically, I'm here to keep the cast safe. Yep. But also to keep the cast safe, I got to make sure there's no people coming in, right? So if I watch, I just kind of like study people when I'm done searching, and I go and just kind of see where. I always ask them, where's all the security points? Because sometimes there's more than one entrance. There'll be like 4 entrances. So I'll kind of just like rotate around and see what's going on. But obviously I can't be at the same, you know, all of the places at once. But, you know, like not to be a jerk, but I'll sometimes if there's like an older person that's doing something, like I just maybe stick to them a little bit, and help them out. Just like, and they're like, oh, I'm so happy you're here. Like I think it's just situational and what your gut's telling you. You just got to be. It's not just the dog's job to keep everybody safe. It's your job too.
Yeah, I love it. That's what you're bringing up is something that it's teachable, but you're doing it through instinct and experience. You're realizing there's a gap probably over here. Let me put myself over here, put the dog in the best position, add that, versus where other people wait to be told to do that. And as as an administrator now, my goal is I don't want the people who are waiting to be told to go do work. I want people to identify there's probably a need for me and my dog over here. I'm gonna go do this. If I'm not busy doing something else, that is my priority. And
right, exactly
I love that you establish priorities. You did your job. Okay, now I'm doing this. Okay, I see there's a gap over here. Let me go put myself over in this position, because you're seeing the overall picture. The picture is making it safe for everybody. And security is in multiple layers. It's the entry points, it's the ticket checkers, it's just people outside. You see something, you say something, and then but in that mix is that $10 an hour security job that's just there to get a paycheck, and then there's the ones who this is a stepping stone to something bigger for them, so they're really into it and they're on it. So it is so important for a dog handler to have situational awareness. It's not just about holding a leash and walking a dog around a space. It's understanding what's in my environment, what's the threat, what am I doing with other entities in the security realm, and how do I best fit in, or how do I best help to get this job done? And that's why the cop world typically goes, well, we only want cops because cops have to go through that in some levels. That's just part of the job. Yeah. Where a commercial side or civilian side didn't get that training and experience because they just wasn't offered to them. But like what you're sharing is it still happens because you're seeing it yourself, but you're also a self-motivated individual who knows to I don't have to say, Danny, can you go over here? And when this is not going, can you walk over here and be in this area? You're like, nope, I got it. You don't need to be, you're self-motivated and you know what to do. I don't have to babysit you and push you around, because that goes back to, if you're not this type of person, then yes, you're making this commercial detection dog world harder, because this is where look at that handler. They're just sitting there in the corner, twiddling their thumbs.
On their phones, not paying attention. Yeah. Yep.
This is the important stuff. So I'm super glad you shared you shared your experience. Is there any other bits of advice, or maybe even better, for a journey just like yours, any either valid points that we didn't cover, or any red flags that you would say, hey, if you're coming into this is something to definitely pay attention to? And I'll kick it off with, a lot of companies will offer oh, we're gonna have contracts, we're gonna be busy, we're gonna do this. The reality is it's bullshit. There's a lot of companies that because on the company side it's hard. They want to get spun up so they have jobs ready to go, but then these handlers get spun up and then they're sitting and waiting forever because, oh, well, that fell through, and oh, well, that fell through. So what red flags or what things would you say, tell handlers hey, look, get into the field, but be ready to deal with this?
Yeah, it's actually funny because I get a ton of DMs about this, and they're like, oh, hey, I have this dog. I want to imprint on explosives. Mind you, it's like a pet that they lived with, which is very discouraging, because I'd say that Tanner is my pet now too, but we put the work in. He wasn't a pet in the beginning, now he's a little bit more seasoned. So he's tired. That's why he's pet, if he wasn't working 24/7, he would not be enjoyable to live with, but they're like, I just love what you do. I want to do this as a profession. And I always tell them, I always say the same thing to everybody, and they probably think I'm gatekeeping, but nobody wants to hear this anymore. I'm always find someone that you look up to, go do the time, pay them, or just sit there and literally take notes. Why are people not taking notes anymore? Everybody just wants. Everybody wants to be a handler. Everybody wants to do this. But the reality is, yes, there's a lot of companies out there, and then they have so many handlers. They don't have that much work. I mean, am I a millionaire doing this? No. But am I making good money for myself? Yes, because I'm on a good contract. I'm very happy, grateful, but I'm also very lucky. Not everybody gets to do this in the private world. So I always say, try to do it. If you have a pet now that you feel is good at this, do it like I did. There's no shame in putting your dog on birch or oils. It doesn't have, your pet doesn't have to be on explosives. It doesn't have to be a narcotics dog. You know what I mean? Because the reality is like, will your pet really be an operational dog?
Probably not.
Probably not. No.
But that's something you learn with, right?
Yeah. I think it's good to have like a project dog, like kind of like how I did. And I'm not saying everybody needs to do that, because maybe they do have a good dog. Maybe they do have a dog, let's say from Tanner's breeder or something, and then they want to get into this. But does that necessarily mean that they're going to be an operational team? And don't, like, if I had any advice for you, like, don't discourage yourself with that. Still, you can still do AKC work with a well-bred dog and learn all the things, all the handling skills, and all the different types of, stuff that you need to learn to be an operational team. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be with your first dog. That's just not how that's not reality,
Yeah. Is there anything, because you've gone through different contracts now, is there anything that you look at as a handler that you pay attention to contract wise that you're like, oop, nope, not getting involved in that?
Yeah. One of our first jobs, well, actually my first job was a Hamilton job when he was 12 months old.
Okay.
And it's actually a pretty easy job for starters, I'd say, because you're not outside, you're not, searching a million cars, you're not, and I've done all the things, literally all the things. I mean, I've done overnight shifts where I go to work at, 3 a.m. and I'm patrolling with my dog as a deterrent at a concert, I searched Kanye West's car. Like it was just weird. I've done everything literally. And I think I would never ever do again is, so I was, I don't know, like searching vehicles in like 95-degree weather for hours and hours. It's just like, yes, I could do it, but also no, thank you. I had like your dog cannot be searching like thousands of cars in that weather. And we only had like 3 dogs on deck, and my dog was the youngest dog. This was his second job. I was like, I'm gonna fuck this dog up. This is crazy, And I told the guy, I was like, I need to give him a break. He's like, well, he's the youngest one here. He should be like searching all the cars. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna advocate for my own dog, and I don't want him being out here. And it's because like it's like oh, you should tell the people to turn their cars off. No one turns their cars off. So you're literally searching like an idiot outside. It's like 95 degrees. You're like all the fumes. Some of their dogs were not even environmentally stable. They were kind of like, whoa, like every time a car would like turn on, and I'm like, I don't care how good the money is. I'm not putting my dog through. I mean, when I'm telling you I was done that shift, his nose is black, his paws were black, his ears were black. I had to go, like, not every handler just goes and, I'm going to go get him a nice little wash. I'll massage his little paws because I'm a fur mom at the end of the day. Like, everyone's like, just throw them in the kennel. I'm like, I am never doing that again. Like, I'm not doing that job again. Ever.
So then what's important for you when you're looking for a job? What do you want to hear from an employer? What's important to you when you're looking at jobs, that when you look at the different companies that are out there, what do you go, that's what makes me want to work for them? Yeah.
I think look out for your handlers on the dog. Like, I don't think it should just be us standing outside. Even when we do concerts, like they're like 10-hour shifts, and yes, they get breaks, but it's not a long enough break. Like, if you're going to have handlers, then maybe hire more teams so we can have, let's say, like a rotation, like 30 minutes, we're doing a crowd of people, and then kind of give them a break for 30 minutes, especially if it's hot. I'm not saying if it's like 60 degrees out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as you know, the East Coast gets pretty hot. So I just, that's something I don't typically like. If they ask me to do a concert, I'm always like, well, I'm going to give my dog a break when he needs a break. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. Because I don't want my dog to overheat.
So what you're looking for is management that cares about the handlers, that shows face, that goes out there, watches what they do, asks questions, is involved. And how important do you feel it is that the employer invests in the handler's education, or helps them either, whether it be attend seminars, get them through things? Because we all, like, you kind of said the same thing. Obviously, we both know this really well. A lot of the handlers that are out there that are going to work, like you just said earlier, aren't rich. Most of them have barely, they're living paycheck to paycheck, right?
Literally, yeah.
And they don't have the discretionary funds to go, hey, we're going to go to this seminar for a week that only costs, let's say, $1,000 for the seminar, but it's not just $1,000. It's $1,000 plus my travel, plus the 4 days off, plus the hotel that we got to stay at. And the next thing you know, it's actually a $2,500 expense and time away from work where you're not making money. So, what I try to share is like for employers or the companies to deal with is like, we got to invest in them and they got to know that we give them support. And that in certain things, once they're doing work, they see us on the job, they see us setting it up for their success, not just to run them like a mule, because that's what you kind of highlighted is run cars all day long, and we don't want to have more than 3 dogs because the client only asked for 3 dogs and we're only billing for 3 dogs. And we need to do is they're asking for 3 dogs, they're getting 5, and if they're gonna want this done right, they're gonna pay for the 5 because we take care of our dogs. Do you want to be known as an employer who's just running dogs like a mule, or do you want to be an employer who takes care of their people and their dogs? And you do that by showing look, we got enough teams here, and we're gonna make sure they get a good work rest schedule. Also, the dogs are well cared for. We're making sure they get the breaks, they get the water, they get the food. Handlers can communicate what they need to do without feeling that they're getting scrutinized because they're asking for assistance. Because the flip side of that is, like you said, they work for all those hours and those dogs are all dirty, they're nasty, they're exhausted. They're breathing in all these horrible fumes all day long with no break or very little break. But
and for me, that's important. I don't want my dog to be run like a mule, especially that was like his second job. He was 12 months old. Yes, he's fresh out of training. He has the energy, has the drive, but that doesn't mean I want to do that to him.
Yep. So I think, a company if a company stands out in the way of we invest in you as a handler and we care about your dogs or we care about the dogs in general. And then at the job site, we're going to make sure that whoever's there also sees that we care for our dogs. And we see that the handlers care for the dogs because like you're always like, Tanner's always getting the baths, getting taken care of versus the dog who's got clumps of hair falling off of it because they're not grooming their dogs and doing the things that they need to do. Because it's two-sided. It's not just one side only. The handler also has to be equally caring about their dogs, and that needs to be seen too.
Absolutely.
But it's what you bring up is what we both have seen in the industry for a long time is companies are there to make money, and we get that. But it can't be at the expense of some of the moral aspects of good dog care and good human care. And making sure that we're taking care of our handlers and taking care of the dogs, so that way they're the assets. They're the whole reason why they're making the money. And if we're, I won't say abuse is not the right word, but if we're running them to the ground, one, we're not going to keep people very long, and two, how can we look at ourselves in the mirror and say we care about the dogs and we treat them this way? And that's an important thing.
Yeah, I think that's important too for handlers to hear is you need to really. After every shift, I'm not joking, I make sure that he hasn't stepped on anything. I check his paws, his ears. I'm crazy. I literally make sure he is okay because, this is, yes, he's my working dog, but I also want him to be good and healthy. Like right now he's out because he's still tired from the night before, right? Yeah. But he's pretty well managed. He eats raw.
I see your shipments come in.
Yeah. And, when he's basically out right now, but when I get to work, he's pretty much kenneled all day at work. It's not like he's running around playing with people. He's kenneled, work, kennel. He comes home. He literally goes right in the kennel. He already knows. Yep. This is his free time, but this dog needs 12 hours of sleep for him to recover the next day. You know what I mean? And that's important for me because I want him to be well rested. I want him to have good nutrition. I know not everybody has, the funds to, feed their dog raw, but nutrition is important for dogs too. It can't be just your tool. You have to take care of them.
Absolutely. It's an investment. Just like we invest in ourselves and our health, we should be doing that. And again, I look at it because now I'm in the role that I'm in. The company, we also need to make sure that the handlers, if they can't, is there a way that we can make sure that you're getting the dogs that we own will of course be treated at the highest level, but even the ones who we don't own, we want them to do the same thing. And is there anything we need to do to make sure that your dog is treated well and given the best possible nutrients to do the job, because it's like an athlete. I mean, we're putting them through a lot of work. So they don't just need the typical kibble. We need to augment this diet with the proper nutrition for them to be optimal at their job. And that sometimes gets kind of overlooked because, again, it's just a resource. Oh, it's a dog, get dog food, blah, blah, blah. And this is an asset that we have, and we're putting it out there as such. Therefore, I need to invest in this asset and make sure it's in great health. So that way we have the best possibility to have a good working team out there doing its job to detect any potential threats in our environments.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you so much for taking time to hop on here with me. I greatly appreciate it. Tell people how, if they want to follow you on your journey with your dogs, how they find you. I know mostly it's Instagram, but give us like your handles and how do we find you?
So I have 2 Instagrams. One is just a private. I don't really post too much. I mean, the stories and stuff that you can follow. Tanner searching, I'll put some stuff on there. It's Deni K9s. And then Tanner's big account is K9 Tanner. Everybody loves him. He's the star, not me. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
So I'll ask one last question. How important do you think it is for, as a handler, even if you work independently or you work with a company, is it a good thing to have your dog to have its own social media page?
Honestly, I was doing contract in Chicago. It was like a cold winter, and I'm like, I'm just going to do it for fun. I had no idea it was going to blow up the way it did. So I think yes, but just be careful. Like, you'll never go on my page and be like, oh, I know where she works, because keep certain things private and professional, obviously, because it is like a resume. If there's a potential client that wants to work with me, they can look him up and be like, I don't really like this kind of stuff that she's posting, so keep it to, minimum. Don't be too crazy. Don't share too much. But I think it's fun to share your working dog with the world. And, most people enjoy watching Tanner more than watching me. So
it's super important points. It's the PR side of it, showing dogs out there doing the job, but also being smart about what you post. So that way you don't get stalkers, you don't get people, going, I don't like that, or I'm an activist for this, and I'm going to give you a hard time because you're working a dog. So you have to be smart about what you're posting. But I think there's more pros than cons. And I think anything that does something to, like you're doing, to help share the experience and to help others, both safety-wise and with others who had the same dream that you do to become a dog handler. So thank you very much for hopping on here and sharing your experiences with us. And
thank you so much for having me on. It's been so awesome to get to finally talk to you.
Yeah.
Been a fan for a million years. So.
Well, like you said, you're both heard George and I say how much we've enjoyed watching, seeing your posts and what you do. And as you know, I've been watching it from afar as well. So keep up the good work. You've done it. You've been an excellent example. That's why I brought you on here, for people who wanted to follow their dream and their passion to become a professional detection dog handler. So
thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to K9s Talking Scents, where it's okay to be nosy.